Hello, beautiful. And what I'd really like to know is what is good in your life today? This is Kia, and this is the season finale of the Female Veterans Podcast. Today, I have an extraordinary guest with me. She's really, really cool. I'm going to give you a little bit of a backstory about her. She is on active duty right now. So it's a little bit different. She is only my second active duty guest that I've ever had on the Female Veterans Podcast. And she's really special to me because technically, you may not know this, but I have another show that I created called Women Warrior Stories. And she was so incredible as to be the first guest on my first video series that I ever created, even before Hot Topics Live. And we're both anxiously waiting for the Veterans Channel to bring that show to life. But while we wait, I wanted to get to connect with her again and to share her story with all of you because it's really amazing. She is incredibly talented and beautiful. And not only that, she's a commander. And she's been all around the world. She's had all these incredible adventures. And I can't wait to share her story with you. So welcome, Corinne.
Thank you so much for having me, Kia. It is nice to be reunited with you and a different part of the world this time.
Right. Last time you were in Italy, right?
Yes. And now I'm in Japan. So I would say Ohayo gozaimasu, good morning, because I'm actually much, much further ahead of you in the future than I was last time.
Yeah, I actually, when I coach, I have some clients that are in Japan. And so it's always tricky to catch up. We're always doing it like this, like I'm in the evening and they're in the very early morning or something along those lines, or my students in Australia as well. So I'm a little bit used to it. I'm just really happy to see you.
You too. It's great to see how we are surviving the pandemic and how we're finally starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel, which I know you and your audience and probably everyone in this world is very anxiously awaiting for the chance to travel, to see people, and to also just feel like we can put this chapter behind us.
I agree with you. I mean, who would have ever believed for 1 minute that we would, let alone see a pandemic in our lifetime, but be able to live through it to see the end and be so close that I can just taste it being over. I can't wait.
Yeah, that makes two of us for sure. So, well, I'm excited to be part of your show, and to all your female veterans out there, thank you so much for your service. I'm excited to be part of your group, and one day, once I leave the Navy, I'll be even more excited to join your ranks. So thank you for having me.
It is always a pleasure to me to have a Navy shipmate of mine on the show. So, all right, go Navy. So my first question for you is, why did you join the military?
Gosh, if you told my 8-year-old self that I would do what my father did, I probably would tell you were crazy. So I come from about 7 generations of military service, and my dad was a dentist in the Navy for over 20 years. And when it came time for me graduating from college and going to dental school, which, if your audience doesn't know, dental school is incredibly, incredibly expensive, I looked into scholarships that both the Army, the Air Force, and Navy offer. So I took the Health Profession Scholarship Program. And for me, joining the Navy was not so much of just getting my education paid for, but also a way for me just to up the skills. A lot of my faculty in dental school had an incredible amount of resiliency and strength that had served in the military, whether they did 2 years, 4 years, 20 years. And it didn't matter the service, whether they were enlisted, they were officers, but they just really seemed to have a knack, a certain, as the French would say, je ne sais quoi, about them serving. And so for me, the idea of having a job, not having the debt, the ability just to really focus in on my craft, my skills, and my trade just really seemed like just a no-brainer. And little did I know this scholarship is incredibly competitive. And little did I know how expensive student loans and dental school can really get, because once you're in the thick of things, you cannot work in dental school. And so to get that stipend every month, just to know that once I graduated, I wasn't waiting for the state board license to go in effect, which a lot of my colleagues, most people don't know, but when you graduate from dental school, medical school, and you're waiting for your license, you have to work as an assistant. You cannot work as a doctor yet until you are fully licensed. And in some states that takes as long as 6 months. So I graduated in May and I came in the Navy in June, and I was starting to get paid already as a dentist, while all of those things were just taking their time to be in full fruition. So for me, there was that. And also the ability to travel. Since I've been in, gosh, 50 countries. And, every time, I think that I've done everything I want to do in the Navy, another door opens. So for me, I really encourage people to look at the military, not as an option of just doing one field and one path, but a chance for you to be part of something bigger than yourselves, and also a chance for really to push yourself outside of comfort zone and do something that you never thought you were capable of doing until you actually are doing it. So those were just a few reasons why I decided to join the military.
Those are good reasons. really, really good reasons. So tell me, you were going to college and were you ROTC then?
Nope, no ROTC. I just got a scholarship. So most people don't realize, but with the medical corps, the dental corps, the nurse corps, the MSc corps, we're considered what's supply. We're not considered the line community. Mm-hmm. And so for us, you can do JROTC or that in college, but you don't have to. For us, it's really just a program, a scholarship program where we sign up, we're in school, our graduate program studies, and we really don't have to do anything for the military except for we could do a clerkship if we wanted to, which is basically an internship at a military base, and go to officer and doctoration school. That's it. So it's a very, very minimal, which also means once you come in, it's a big shock to your system, because it's almost like you're just thrown in the deep in the pool and you don't know how to swim, and you got to figure out real quick how to tread water. So that's what I actually see some of my colleagues who are here in Japan, their first duty station, one that went from dental school to residency, who's now in zone for lieutenant commander, but really has only been in the military for a year because he was in school the whole time, paid for by the military. Yeah. So it's a much, much different experience than I know some of the other people who are enlisted, like my brother, mm-hmm. Or our officer, and they go to officer school. So yeah, I'm more than happy to connect with anyone in your audience who's looking to go that path, because there is requirements and they do change, but it's definitely nice. It's definitely nice having student loan debt, for sure. I've definitely been enjoying that.
I can just imagine. You can't even imagine how much student loan debt I have. Although as a disabled veteran, you're able to have that expunged. Mm-hmm. But I haven't started the process yet because I'm not sure if I'm done. I have 7 classes left to finish my second master's degree. And I've been on a break for the last 2 years. And now I'm kind of like, I don't want to go back.
It's a lot of work.
For so long. I just want to be done. And because the tax laws changed under the last presidency, that means I had 5 classes. Now I have 2. And the 2 that they added on are some of the hardest of the whole course. So I'm just like, oh, do I want to do it? Part of me is like, finish it. The other part of me is like, I'm doing so many other things now. Why do I need to finish it? So I think the debt accrued too. Why do I want to add more debt onto what I already have? So not having that debt, I can imagine, must feel amazing.
Yes. It's very liberating.
So when you came out of college, you came directly into the military. Did you have to do like OCS, like officer training school?
So I went straight from college to dental school, and that's when I got the scholarship. And then, yes, I was required to do officer school, which is a silver spoon compared to the boot camp that you guys go through, at least in the Navy. And for us, under the scholarship, we had to figure out a time to do it. So most people did it right before they started dental school their first year, or when they completed. I actually went halfway in between. My classmates and I saw an opportunity where during one of our summers between our second and third year, after our first part boards, that the school gave us 5 or 6 weeks where you could either retake some classes, you could go on a mission, to a third world country, you could do research. And so all of us saw an opportunity where we could actually sign up for the officer school course in Newport, Rhode Island. And so we ran it through our dental school. They loved it. They just required us to do a presentation. We came back. And so we all 5 of us went to Newport, Rhode Island in the month of August, which is a beautiful month to be in Newport. And we did 5 weeks of training. And, I just remember telling myself it's a game. and a game in the sense of like, you just got to go along and not take things personal. No, you're learning things to be a better version of you for the military. And I feel that some of the things that kind of caught some of my classmates off guard is how much running we were going to have to do, how much physical endurance tests that we'd have to go through, from being put in gas chambers to being firefighters to being on a ship called Buttercup, where they dump on water and you feel like you're going to drown, and you're doing this in uniform. And for me, one of the things, I got really good at swimming, which is something I have definitely lost, that, I haven't been in water as much since then. That's something I'm hoping to get back into here in Japan, but it definitely forces you to bond. And ironically, two people in my graduating class, this is back in 2005, one of them is the governor for Florida, and the other one had the closest race to become governor for the state of Nevada. So a lot of my classmates left, went straight into the fleet, where I went back to dental school. And then they all did another tour and got out, where I've stayed in. And so it's really fascinating to see where some of my classmates have gone. And, one day I'm sure we'll run into each other, and it'll just be like how it is for anyone, where you just catch up, you pick up right where you left off. So I'm looking forward to that, especially seeing how some of them are all over the news right now, which is it's just comical to me.
You like got all the dirt.
Yes,
but like a good sailor, you're going to keep it to yourself.
Absolutely. I just love it when my father uses it to go to some course. He's like, "Oh, I'm Corinne's dad," and they're like, "Oh, okay," and then he just walks in. It's just funny to me. So that's all right. I'm glad my father's retired military. He can do those things. So.
That's right. He earned it. He earned
it. Yes.
So tell me, you went through training school and you had all of these incredible experiences. What was it? So then you went back to college, and then you finished and you came.
Yeah, I went back to dental school, and then once I graduated 2 years later. So whenever you graduate from dental school or medical school, you come in as an 03. So they have us re-swear in. So you're an ensign, an 01 in your graduate program. And then they count those 4 years as if you were in the military, but it doesn't count towards retirement. So you swear back in, and we all took the oath again the day after graduation, which was really important. I'm really glad my classmates pulled me from a pool party to do this, because that is the date of my rank for everything, for pay and everything. May 12th, 2007 was the day I came in, and then coordinated my move. And then I came down to San Diego to start a 1-year fellowship in June of 2007 in San Diego. So that is where I started my career.
Wow, that is incredible. And so tell me what it was like when you first got to your first duty station, and you're a new officer, and you're not technically, but sort of, and you're in the military now, and your schooling days are behind you. What was that? You said you notice it in people around you there in Japan. What was it like for you, that transition?
For me, I felt in some ways that the transition was tough, in the sense of like, you just felt like you didn't know what you were doing right or doing wrong. And like, you were just completely ignorant about a lot of things. But in some ways it felt comforting, because I was there with 7 other guys in my class. So we were all in this together. So our pay being messed up, paperwork being messed up, like all these things that unfortunately just don't happen your first year in the Navy. They seem to happen like every time you move or transition in the military. We were going through it together. And so it was nice that we could compare our LESs. We could check in with each other, like, hey, am I wearing the devices right? Does it look right when I stand? You had that accountability with each other to help each other out. I mean, I remember one officer, he was notoriously late. He always had on thing on backwards, but he looked like he genuinely didn't realize he was. And it was just, I almost sort of being the class clown. It was just hilarious. And we had a really great program director. My program director, he's now a captain, Joseph Molinero. I love you. You're the amazing, amazing program director. Really took us underneath his wing and just made us feel good. And again, I'll just share with the audience, these are my views. They're not the views of the Department of Defense, but when you have an officer like that who really makes you feel appreciated, but also pushes you with some tough love, it's such a great footing to start, because, not everyone has that experience the first time in the military. And I think when they don't have that good first experience, it kind of puts a sour taste in their mouth, thinking that's what it's like everywhere, versus what, you just didn't have a really great leader to start with, or you just didn't have that good connection. So for us, it was just a really good way of kind of navigating the ways of the Navy. And at that time, I felt like the dental corps was going through a big transition, because they used to be separate from medical, and now they've merged. And so having a nurse in charge of you, or having a physician in charge of you, can be quite challenging, because some of the rules that apply in their world really don't apply in ours, and vice versa. So, but yeah, it was a whirlwind year. I'm really glad I did it. Really, really glad. I could not have asked for a better first year in the Navy.
Wow, it sounds like so much growth. I think it sounds like so many of our first years in the Navy, whether you're enlisted or an officer, it's just so much adjustment and so much getting used to everything and so much trying to figure things out. And I do think it's really amazing when you have people around you that's like, for me, it was people I went to boot camp with, right? That came with me to my A school. And we got to figure things out together and help each other out. And sort of survive. And I had a really great leader in A school too, Petty Officer Arnold. So shout out to him wherever he is. He was amazing and helped us get through and helped us get it together. And he was really, really cool. And we just loved him. Even when I became staff after my schooling was done, I stayed on the same base. And I remember getting my first car, and he like went with me driving around. So because I had my license, but I'd never had a car. So he kind of went driving around with me so I could get more practice in and feel comfortable getting myself to and from work. It was just those like little sweet things that good leadership can do for you. And of course, he was tough love at times too, because you need that as well. Everybody can't be a cheerleader for you. And you're not going to find a lot of cheerleaders in the military. It's usually, I think, tough love that gets you through it. So I think that's really amazing. And on the flip side of that, a lot of the women that I talk to, they have experienced in all different branches bad leadership. And so oftentimes I get a chance to hear about the bad leadership and commiserate. And we've all seen what's been going on at Fort Hood. And so we know that it's out there. I mean, it's now the public knows that sometimes there's really bad leadership. And so it's nice when we can have a conversation like this and talk about, really good leaders that were really beneficial on our journeys while we were serving and
Yeah.
we're still serving.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that's important. I would tell your audience, I don't think anyone is immune in the military from having a bad leader, not at least not once. But look at it as of taking it back and saying, okay, this is what I am not going to do when I'm leading. Like these are the, how this person is making me feel, or how what in, and be like thinking, if I ever project this or if I act this way, this is really how it looks. This is how it's perceived. So, things about your previous leaders that you never appreciated before because you were never put in that situation. So for me, that's been very evident in my career. So yeah, I don't know, what goes around comes around. I've seen that happen in the military, and sometimes things that happen even with my parents in the military, with some of the people that are still in. It's you just have to keep in mind, you either things happen for you or to you. So take it with a grain of salt. So yeah.
For sure. So, my next question for you is after your first duty station, where did you go and what was that experience like?
So after completing my AGD residency program, I wanted to be operational with the Marines. So I went up the road to Marine Corps Air Station Miramar and raised my hand to deploy to Iraq. So I wasn't there for too long with 13th Dental Company. I actually started getting ready for pre-deployment training. We were heavily involved in Iraq. This is in 2008. And so about 2 months in, I started up my pre-deployment training, which involved going to field medical officer school, more gas mask, more training in the field, getting my gear ready. And then in February of 2009 is when I left for Iraq. So that's where I spent a good chunk of my operational tour. I got my Fleet Marine Force officer insignia. I was with my boss, Commander Callahan, who's now retired, and several other corpsmen. I believe they're all out. I think maybe one is still in. And we were in Al Asad, Iraq for 7 months and just had a really good experience over there. I was very blessed that I had a really good team. I think my boss and I maybe got into little tiffs, if you even want to call it that, in 7 months, which I feel like is really awesome. She just really took me under her wing and taught me a lot. And I was just super excited to be there. She let me have full range doing all sorts of fun activities for the guys, because I was very grateful to have a military family who sent me tons of care packages. So for 4th of July, for Easter, for any holiday, you name it under the sun, we had stuff. And then because over there, the materials we use in dentistry can actually ruin our uniforms. And it's not like I can go down the street and get more camis, because with the Marines, you wear the Marine camis, it just says US Navy and not US Marines on it. My mom would send me the most obnoxious scrub tops just to annoy the Marines. So I had Garfield, I had teddy bears, I had flowers, and these Marine Corps generals just walk in and look at me like, what are you wearing? And I'm like, I love your uniform, sir, but I don't want to ruin it. So that's why I'm wearing this. And so, yeah, I got to treat Iraqi security force colonels. That was my first patient. He thought I was someone's 12-year-old daughter, which was, in that country, they treat women very differently.
Yeah.
They do. You have to be mindful of that. It's a culture thing, but they know they get great care from us. So he was very taken back by me. And then he also learned my boss was female. And I don't know what the translator said, but he opened his mouth and I took care of him. So yeah, it was great. Took out a tooth that looked like it was totally fine, but it had periodontal disease, which basically meant the tooth was very mobile and was causing him a lot of pain. And from there, while I was over there, I applied to get into orthodontics residency. So I worked with the oral surgeon that was assigned to the region. His name is Mark Gransart. He's now separated. He has a practice outside in Texas, outside of Dallas. And we wired jaws shut. And I loved it so much that I put my name in for orthodontics residency and got picked up while I was over there. So I was doing my interviews at like 2:00 in the morning and super excited to know that I'd be starting residency. So instead of going from Iraq to Afghanistan, I went from Iraq and came back to the States so that way I could start residency 6 months later. So yes, it was a great, great tour, but I didn't spend much time in California with that tour. That tour was all about the Middle East. So, which is fine. It was a good experience.
That's amazing. I love how you just seem to land in all these different places. What was it like when you were in the Middle East during Liberty, like during your off time?
So during my off time, I went to the gym a lot because it was the one time where I did not have to wear my uniform, which in 130 degrees heat to wear like shorts and a t-shirt was just like a blessing. And I also fell in love with books again. So we were in a hardened structure, but obviously you had to worry about sand and dirt coming everywhere. So, the first few weeks we would go scavenger hunting in different buildings and then kind of add things to our place just to make it better. So between decorating, putting up photos, reading, I also spent a lot of time with my battle buddy, who also is separated from the military. And we would just either work out or go on walks, or sometimes I would help my guys put together care packages because the ones who were married or had families back in the States, I knew what it was like as a military kid to get something from my dad in the mail, like even a postcard. It made your week. Like you were just super excited. And even though, we did have internet, it wasn't very, very fast. It was dial up. So we all know how painful dial up was. And so mail was just another way to send things to make people feel appreciated. And so that's what I would help guys do, from like opening boxes and decorating with stickers and putting all sorts of stuff in there. Because, when we could call home, it was hard due to the time zone change, but also the fact of it just took one good sandstorm to come in and knock down communications. And then it was kind of like, you really couldn't do that. So that was some things I did. I tried to mix it up. I didn't want to sit around and watch movies all the time. I wanted to have some things to keep me busy. So that's pretty much what I did.
And then, so you moved back to the States and I'm sure you worked very, very hard. Where did you go after that?
So after I got back from deployment, I was in San Diego doing post-deployment. And you really do go through a culture shock. I didn't think I would as much, but you do, because you have to remember, you don't have a car for 7 months. You don't do your own laundry. You don't do your own cooking. You are now kind of back into a much more hamster wheel, a little bit more complicated world. And so after kind of getting adjusted going back, I prepared to move to Texas. So I actually attended the Tri-Service Orthodontic Residency Program. It's a residency program for all 3 branches of military. So if anyone ever wants braces in the military, active duty veteran, San Antonio, Texas is where you need to live, because as many orthodontists as there are in the entire Navy in the world are how many there is in San Antonio, Texas. So shameless plug for my residency program. Totally love going to school there. Worked my butt off, drank from a fire hose, learned a lot. Maybe one day, hopefully go back there and teach. And I was there for 2 years for a whirlwind of learning. And as soon as I got done with that, I graduated and went to Yokosuka, Japan, the month following graduation. So everyone in the military says, hurry up and wait. They really do mean it, because as soon as the moment you kind of feel settled in a place, you're going to be leaving soon. That's just, that is just how it is. The military never lets you get comfortable for too long. It's always a constant state of transition. So for me, yeah, got ready for the biggest move for me at that career, to move to Japan. And so I was in Yokosuka, Japan right after that.
That's super exciting. So this is actually your second time in Japan.
It is. It is. No, I'm in a much different part of Japan. So
Yeah.
just to put things in perspective for your audience, Japan is the size of California, with about a third of the population of the US, which is a lot of people.
That's a lot of people.
Yes. And they are very space conscious. They're very minimalist, very trash conscious. I would say they recycle literally everything. I have a total of 5 different trash cans here, and depending on the day, different types of trash go out. And then I could have up to 9 if I wanted. But those are the most commonly ones I use. And they're a very safe, very respectful society. And Yokosuka is 30 miles south of Tokyo. So we were very urban, very close to a lot of action. And I flew actually into Tokyo, and then Yokosuka actually has a shuttle that goes back and forth that you can hop on, or the trains. The trains in Japan are just incredible. They're on time. They're super clean. You can't find a trash can to save your life here in Japan. They actually had a terrorist attack. So that's why they've really limited the number of public trash cans, believe it or not.
Wow.
But most of the time, like yesterday, I was on a hike and we all ate something. There was no trash can. We just have to put it in our bags and just, it is what it is. So, but I had a really good tour there. I got a chance to see a lot of Asia. And while I was there, I rotated down to another base called Sasebo that is very south. It's on Kishu. And I provide orthodontic services to all the families and the active duty there. So very often I was in a plane once a month traveling. And if anyone wants to get an idea how Japan compares to the rest of Asia, it is truly probably the Switzerland. Between this and Singapore, they're probably the richest countries in Asia. So yes, it is very expensive here, but day-to-day living, if it's other outside of food and maybe just 1 or 2 things, it's actually very inexpensive. Like I bought a car here for at that time $1,000, and my insurance was just a couple $100 a year. So here I'm now in Iwakuni, so second time in Japan, but I'm in a much southern part of Japan. So I'm on the map. If you look at the main island, I'm close to the southern tip, and I'm outside of Hiroshima. And I mean, we all can't get over. You pay $3,000 for a car that'll last you 2, 3, 4 years, and you just pay a couple $100 in insurance. And I think $20 a month is not even what I pay for gas. It is just so cheap in that regards. Food, on the other hand, is a little bit more expensive here, but the quality of the food is really good. There's no such thing as organic because everything is just grown here locally. So I know a lot of my friends who have dairy allergies, same thing in Italy, can eat almost anything here and have 0 issues. But because the food is so fresh, it does go bad quickly. So you do go to the grocery store a lot more often than you do back in the States.
Wow, that's amazing. I've heard that too about the food. Because I have certain food allergies, and my friends are like, you need to go to certain places in Africa or Japan and you will be fine. And I was like, really? That's incredible. But it goes to show, like, when you don't have all the pesticides and everything like that in the food, then you can eat more things. You can enjoy more different foods. So that's exciting. I need to go to Japan.
Yeah, come. I got get you ready.
Yeah.
For the country to open up their borders.
I tell you what, I am dying to travel. I have severe wanderlust right now, and I cannot wait to just get on a plane and just be all over the place. So I am very tempted. And my son loves anime, as most kids his age do. And he is dying to go to Japan. That's like his place he wants to go.
Well, if you guys come, I know exactly where to take him because I've already purchased some animes for some of my friends back in the States. So yeah, there's a great place called Hondori Street, and they've got some great stores there. So he'll probably be feeling like that'll be his Disneyland for him at the time.
Wow, that's so cool. I love that. So your first tour in Japan, let's talk about that. What was that like?
That was my first tour as an orthodontist, and I'm still very junior officer. So I was still lieutenant. I had just got selected for lieutenant commander, but for the military, they'll tell you your rank, but they won't put it on till about a year later. That's the way the government saves money. And most people don't know that, but I had got there a year after they had their the tsunami and the big earthquake that really shook a lot of parts of Japan. So what was great is I got really involved with doing host nation building exercises and doing a lot of volunteers. So I actually got to go to the hospital that was close to Fukushima that actually got hit. And actually, when we were there, we felt a couple earthquakes, which are just the aftershocks, which were pretty unnerving to say the least. It was unbelievable. Parts of town we walked through, and you could see where literally the water had washed away homes and other homes that looked completely untouched. And it's just, it's pretty miraculous how the people recovered. You know, there was no looting, there was no riots. People went back to their homes. They took care of each other. They looked out for their neighbors. It really has bonded the country. And since then, what I noticed from that tour is, unfortunately, certain parts of Japan, the produce or certain areas have higher taxes, and that's one of them because of all the radiation that they got from that power plant going through some of the destruction. Right. So, but during the tour, I did a lot of traveling to other parts. So I went to Cambodia, Thailand, Singapore, Hong Kong, and got a chance to appreciate different parts of the world that I never thought of. And also, it opened my eyes about traveling. So I'll share with your audiences a story of one trip where I was in Cambodia. I was with 2 other women and 4 guys, and I forgot a razor. I forgot to pack a shaving razor. And so we were eating lunch. We were in Puttapan, and I told my friends, I'm just going to go across the street. That looks like a convenience store and buy something. And my friend June comes with me. And again, this is broad daylight in the afternoon. Well, we go over the street. We ask the guy what he has. We point to it, and he holds up a clear plastic bag with a bunch of razors in it. And I'm just looking at that thinking, like, that is a tetanus shot waiting for me right there. So he drops the bag. We go down the store. And as we're going to this next store, unbeknownst to me, they're starting to grab a crowd of people that are starting to surround me and my friend June. We're both very petite women. She's 5'1", I'm 5'3". And finally, when I buy it and I look around and I see how many people are starting to crowd us, because you have to remember, overseas people look at Americans that we are rich. And if you think about what other people have in other parts of the world, even when we feel like we don't have much, we have far more than what most people have. And we also come from a country of plenty, where if we can't, if Target doesn't have it, you can go down the street and get it at Walmart, or you can get it at another store. That's not necessarily the case overseas. They don't have it. They don't have it. It's simple as that. And so as soon as I realized what was happening, I didn't even take the change. I grabbed my friend's hand and we went back across the street, and we realized very quickly that we need to have one of the guys, either her husband or one of her buddies, with us, just because, you just have to be mindful. You have to be very, very mindful when you travel. And don't get me wrong, I love Cambodia. I would definitely go back there if one of my friends ever wanted to go. But you learn, especially in Asia, how much you stand out, especially being blonde hair, blue eyed. You are a flashlight. Yeah. Really, truly a flashlight. And so it also made me feel very grateful, because Japan is a very, very safe country. So I could go running outside at 4:00 in the morning if I wanted, with my headphones in, and never worry about a car hitting me. I would never worry about someone, a homeless person, nothing like the things that you would have to worry about, maybe certain parts of your town that you're back in the States, just because it's such a safe country. And so with that, sometimes that security, you realize you don't always have that in other parts of the world. So for me, it was a very eye-opening experience of just being very mindful when I travel, how to travel in other countries, things to look for. I definitely would recommend people to ever watch the movie Taken, because some of the things, I know some of it's glamorized, but some of the things about, where the girls share a taxi with a really cute guy, or a really good looking guy invites you to a party with his friends, might be something that might involve in like human trafficking. And that is something that is very, very real and very prevalent, even in this part of the world. And I always tell people, like, that was something I realized very quickly. I'd love to travel and I love to explore, but certain parts of the world, you just can't go by yourself. You need to go with other people. So, yeah.
Oh my God. Yes. I mean, even when I was in Chicago serving, and I served in the mid-90s, right? We would go into the city, and I would always go with, we would always have the buddy system, especially if it was me and a girlfriend. We would always go together. If we came together, my rule from me and my friends was always, if we came together, we leave together. Mm-hmm. And just to keep everyone safe, because, as young women, or women of any age, really, we always have to be so mindful about where we are and who's around us at any given time. After having served, I think for us girls, we have that mindset all the time.
Yep. Situational awareness. Absolutely.
So thank God for that. And girls who are civilian, our civilian friends are very lucky to have found friends that have served to hang around and run around with, because it's entrenched in us to have your back, so it's a beautiful thing. And to get to travel like we do in the military. Actually, I did not get to travel very much in the military. It was a different time then. It was the Clinton era. They were not doing a lot of defense spending. So they needed bodies at the training command because no one wanted to go there. That base was strict, and it was strict, but we still had a lot of fun. And I was there stationed north of Chicago the entire time at the training command. But I loved it. I did. I had a really great experience in the military until the day I didn't. And then after that, I recreated a good time until I finished my active duty service. But I will tell you, I am so much of a patriot, I guess. I can say that. My blood bleeds blue is what they say.
Yes.
I'm so proud of my service. Who knew, like, after all this time of life, that it would be one of my favorite memories of my entire life, no matter what happened. I was very lucky, actually, but I actually had more fun than most people I think should ever have in the military while I was serving. And I didn't even get to go anywhere. But that was one of my biggest regrets, I think. The only thing I didn't love was that I do kind of have that feeling like I really wish I would have got to see more. I joined the military to see the world, but I saw Chicago, and I lived there for 12 years afterwards because I loved it so much. So I'm not really that sad, but I do sometimes go, man, it would have been cool to go to Japan. It would have been cool to go to Italy. It would have been cool to do all that stuff while in the military and have that base and that family with you when you do all these things, because you've got like a ready-made little community whenever you transition. So it's really cool that you've got.
That's true. And I will tell you, if you want to come to Japan, I have friends who are booking plane tickets right now in the fall, $300 round trip for them to fly from Florida to Japan. So I will just tell your audience, certain times of the year are very expensive to travel, July and August. But outside of that, and probably around the holidays in December, it's actually very, very inexpensive to travel overseas. I'm shocked that usually my plane tickets coming back to the States are cheaper than for my parents to fly, just as my family from the East Coast to the West Coast. So yeah, it's just something to go out there. So you know what? No time like the present, especially once the borders open. But yeah, just learned a lot. And I would definitely advise people to use their tour company, no financial interest here, but I love a company called Buffalo Tours. They're who I used for all my trips in Asia. And the beauty about traveling in Asia is your money goes much further. So I would say outside of, in Singapore and Hong Kong and even parts of Japan, but even Japan is still relatively inexpensive. What you get a 5-star service for a 2-star price. And let's be honest, who doesn't love a luxury vacation for a 2-star price? So yeah, I've definitely enjoyed my time over here for sure.
I absolutely feel that, girl. I love a luxury vacation and saving money at the same time.
Yeah.
Count me in. So I know something before we go on to talk about your next duty stations. And I've heard a lot of accomplishments in your story already, but I happen to know that you are beautiful. Yeah, everyone, you can't see how beautiful she is, but she's and
thank you.
That you got involved in pageants. So while all of this is going on in your military career, before the pandemic and everything, you were doing pageants and everything like that. So it's part of your story, and I'd love to know how that plays into it.
So I got into pageants as a complete dare from some jerk in my dental school who told me I couldn't do it. And I wasn't one of those little girls that could do pageants. I mean, let me put it straight. My father was a commander in the military. There was no way he was ever going to let me do something like that growing up. But, now I'm in dental school. I'm out on my own. And I had a friend who watched the Miss USA pageant, and the second runner up was from North Carolina and a dental student. And she's like, Corinne, I think you should do it. And before I could respond, some jerk in my class told me I couldn't. And guess what? It just set me on a journey. And that year I competed for Miss Nevada. I got first runner up, and 3 years later I won. And then I came into the Navy. And so when I came in, again, I was very lucky. My boss, Captain Molinero, was very supportive. I said, I know I just checked in, but can I leave to take 5 days of vacation to go back to Las Vegas to compete in nationals? And he said, yeah, the timing is perfect. You got here early before your classmates. This is going to help you in so many skills. Like, he could actually see the foresight that of seeing what those skills I was going to learn before I even realized the skills I was going to learn. And from there, I competed almost every year, sometimes twice a year. And, as we get older, our free time becomes less and less. We get more responsibilities as we progress in our careers. We have to make sure, especially in the Navy, that, you are killing it on your job performance before you ask them time to do other things. Because if you're not, then it shows that your priorities aren't straight. And so for me, when I was in residency, I actually won Miss Texas, and I convinced my faculty that for my master's degree, I wanted to use pageant women and showing aesthetics of facial attractiveness for my orthodontic research. And it worked, and they loved it. In fact, they even allowed me to do a pageant to get more applicants for my study. And, just timing. And I'm just so blessed that God did this for me in my life, that the timing of when I competed for my first large national title, Miss United States, actually happened 2 weeks after residency. So I completed residency June 24th, and I left for DC, took a week of leave, competed for Miss United States, won, came back, and they got my orders to move to Japan. So it's just interesting how pageantry and the military, as much as they are very different, have worked so synergistically together for me. And so for me, I got to bring a title to places I've never been. In Asia, pageantry is not as revered as it is in the United States. So it was great really to use that as a platform to do a lot of speaking, from speaking for STEM, which is science, technology, engineer, mathematics for young women, to helping out with charity auctions, to doing things that I never done, but because they just needed someone that had that crown to use as leverage just to bring, more awareness or raise more money. And, even my first national title before this, I won right before deployment. Every single one of those girls in that pageant sent my sailors care packages on deployment.
Oh my God,
these are women sweet. I just met. And so for me, that camaraderie that I know that everyone loves who has served in the military, regardless if you had a good experience or not, every single person I've ever talked to who has served misses and adores that camaraderie. Hands down. That is universal.
Absolutely.
Universal. I had that in pageantry, and I still have it in pageantry. So for me, it's stemmed from just competing to now getting older and finding systems where I really see of like, okay, it's not so much necessarily winning the crown, but what are the skills? What are the things I'm going to be pushed along the way outside my comfort zone to learn about and to be part of? From learning how to cook to learning more aspects on social media to now doing podcasts. It's just been such a whirlwind of skill set. And it all came to me just pushing myself to do a hobby that has really, in some ways, become another job for me and has been another job for me. So right now I'm the current reigning international Miss 2020. Fingers crossed, the Navy will allow me to go back in September to hand over my title. So I'm pairing it up with a Navy leadership course and a continuing education course, just again, knowing how my boss thinks, making sure that my time is being utilized. And then after that, depending on what travel allows, I would love to compete again. There's actually a pageant for women in the military called Miss Veteran America. So yes, plug out for anyone in your audience who has served, you can actually do that system. I would love to do it. They're doing their prelims virtually. However, their pageant is going to be live and it's in Florida. So I think the possibilities of it staying live are probably pretty good in Florida, but until they lift the travel restrictions for me here, I really can't commit to anything live until those changes happen. But yeah, I would tell people, like, if you look at a pageant woman, you'd be surprised the diversity of their skill set. So some of the girls that I know are women who are competing for my title. One is an Olympic bodybuilder who just won a world championship in Russia. Another one is her husband works for the State Department in Serbia. This is my sister queen, and she raises money for orphanages in Serbia. Again, these are just women in my organization. Another is a firefighter. Another is a special ed teacher. So these are all women who are making an impact in different parts of the world and love pageantry as another way just to elevate their cause. So again, it's much more than just someone who looks beautiful on stage in a swimsuit or an evening gown and wants world peace, which, let's be honest, world peace would be great for all of us, especially in the military. And
absolutely.
For me, it's just been my why. I mean, I will tell you, I get weekly check-ins from these girls in pageantry. There is not a single day that I do not wake up and see messages on my phone. So again, having that accountability, having those people who really look out for you, and that is the link that unites you, is just such a wonderful thing that I don't know if I'll ever let it go, because I just adore it so much. And for me, maybe I'll just be behind the stages and being the person zipping up the dresses and gluing the stone back in my high heel, or, safety pinning a dress where the zipper broke. I mean, there'll be something I'll be involved. And what capacity, it'll probably change over the years, but I definitely will always continue to do it.
I love that. That's really fun, really inspiring, and just beautiful energy, I think. And not just aesthetically, but like really on a soul level, to have so much compassion that you want to give to the world, and you do it in such a way that I think is sort of underestimated sometimes by people who are not a part of that community. So I definitely I actually had a contestant for Miss Veteran America on, Wendy, in the fall. Correction, that was Liz. So I did have someone on here on the show who was competing, and it was amazing to learn about the competition. And I hope to have Jess Booth on in the upcoming weeks and talk about how she got started with that as well. So I'm actually watching that pageant and our competition, and really appreciate everything that they're doing. And I love that it's a chance for female veterans to come together and have more camaraderie in that way, so.
Yeah. And what is great about that competition is, so if you actually enter the competition, all the proceeds actually go to a charity that is serving to help female veterans who are homeless.
That's like my passion.
That is right there. I mean, that is all it's doing. And so every pageant I've been involved has some sort of charity or has some sort of, vision or focus, but to have something that really gives back to the people who are competing in it and what they're part of, it's incredible. So hopefully one day I'd love to throw my name in the hat, because the current title holders, I mean, the current winner, she raised $35,000 before she even won the pageant for that charity. That's beautiful. And again, she did this during the pandemic. This was in 2020, people, last year. I want to put things in perspective. So could you imagine if we weren't in a pandemic, the amount of money she would raise? I mean, I'm awestruck, truly awestruck by it.
Absolutely incredible. And I know that, just the whole pageant system is incredibly empowering for women. I had Raquel Riley Thomas on here a couple of seasons ago, and she runs pageants in DC, and she's just incredible too. Like, powerful women doing amazing things with other women. That's like everything I love. And not to mention, when there's money that goes to charity, and probably my own special favorite cause to support homeless female veterans, it doesn't get any better than that. And you start thinking about those kinds of things, and I feel like we just all have to support that. We all have to, like, as female veterans, when we see each other doing things, a perfect reference for someone who has a crown, queens straighten each other's crowns, right? We help each other along. So that's what I think needs to happen in our whole female veteran community. When we see each other doing amazing things, we need to rally and support each other. That's why I am so appreciative for all the support I get for this podcast. And that's why I have other female veteran podcasts hosts as guests on my show, so that we can straighten each other's crowns and support each other and lift each other up. So it's beautiful work that you're doing and will continue to do. And at the same time as your active duty, I just want to stress that that's all happening while everything we've been talking about in your career has been going on, you've also had a whole nother career going on, which is
Yep.
incredible.
My day starts at 4:30 a.m. In case your audience wants to know what time, if I do sleep. Yes, I do sleep between the hours of probably 9:30 to 4 o'clock in the morning is when I try to get my sleep in.
Goodness, girl. I was gonna say I don't know how you do it all. I don't know how you do it all, but I'm
Well,
very awestruck myself.
thank you. Thank you. Well, I would just tell your audience, you make time for things that are important. And I would say certain times in your life, certain things will take more than a precedent than other. And for me, as much as I love doing pageantry right now, I'm doing as much as I can with the pandemic, but also knowing that my focus, since I can't travel and I can't do some of the volunteer outreach that I've done before, my focus is working on other things I can, which is a book and hopefully speaking it for the American Association of Orthodontists. Fingers crossed. The conference happens live next January. So, it's the pandemic, as hard it is, as much as we all hate being grounded. And trust me, I'm like you, I have wanderlust and travel jitters all the time. I take that as like, all right, this is the time for me to work on that project or work on something I said I would always do when I had time. Well, guess what? Now I have the time. So I'm going to make the most of it. So yeah.
So I know that you mentioned your book and I want to talk about that. But before we do, I want to get current on where we are now with your military career because you're still active duty. So we're not going to talk about your transition out of the military, but let's talk about what happened between Japan and Japan.
So since when I left Japan the first time in fall of 2014, I went back to San Diego, and it was great to now be a mentor and a attendee for the program that I started in. So I was now actually lecturing, helping, doing cases with all the new residents, all the new first year dentists coming in. And I also hosted the Navy Medicine West, at the time it was called the Orthodontics and Pediatric Continuing Education course. So it's the largest course that we do for general dentists to come. We had Army and Air Force who also attended, and I recruited speakers for a full week of lectures and CE. And we did it at Balboa Hospital. And also while I was doing this, I was actually mentoring I should not say students, they feel like students to me, but there are other dentists that wanted to go into orthodontics. So I'm proud to say 3 of the 4 women that I actually mentored are now orthodontists in my Navy orthodontic community. So that was really humbling. And then, of course, in how the military works, I get a phone call from someone who's my mentor. She was the specialty leader at the time. So just to put things in perspective, in the Navy medicine, because we have so many specialties in dentistry and medicine, you have what's called a specialty leader, and they're kind of the voice of your community, but they also work hand in hand with your detailer. So if something shifts or changes in your community, they really know each person in the community fairly well to know who's the best fit for the job. And what ended up happening was that one of our officers who was overseas in Italy had some family things where he needed to leave. And he left very, very quickly. He left at 11 months of a 24-month tour, which meant someone needed to get over there. So I got orders end of June to leave in July.
Wow.
And so I actually didn't get out till August because everyone knows PCS season in the summer is crazy. So arranging for a pack out. And again, I'm not married. I don't have children. I don't have any health problems. I have no pets. Like probably the easiest move you can possibly do had to happen. And so I'm very grateful for the places I stayed at because I got moved out, but I didn't have a plane ticket. Grateful for the friends who let me borrow cars because I ended up selling my car to CarMax. I think the day before I flew out. Yeah. And so I went to Italy, and as much as I wasn't excited about the move, it actually turned out to be the best tour of my career because I really got to flourish there. So I was in zone for 05, very nervous about moving to a new command. And I'm very grateful that I had my fellow director, Captain Gooden, who really took me underneath her wing, took care of me. And I got selected for 05 there. And I was the department head for all the dental specialties. And I'll put things in perspective. I was the youngest commander there. So I was in charge of people who were 20 and 30 years older than me. That was a learning lesson by itself. So before that, I had been working with a communications coach, and communications is my background. And let me tell you, how I spoke to each of those officers and how I spoke to my enlisted and how I spoke to my boss and my patients was all very, very different. And I learned as a leader that I had to change the way that I communicated. I had to change things I did to get the job done. Because at the end of the day, did it really matter how they did it or what they said? No, all it mattered was that I was actually able to get the mission accomplished. And so for me, it really pushed me a lot outside my comfort zone. Because I learned, not everyone handles overseas life the way I do. And sometimes people's emotions get the better of them, and really learning how to be a very calming and peaceful force of nature. Sometimes they're tornado. Was something that I really learned. And I got to travel to a bunch of places in the world. And I'll tell you, Italy, as much as I love the Italians, they are not as organized as the Japanese. So there was about a good 3 months I had no car. And I was very, very grateful for my fellow officers for giving me rides. And I had a great landlord, even though I would come home and all my food gone bad because the power outages were frequent. But I just learned, especially in Italy, in the very beginning of your tour, and I would tell this to anyone who starts a new job, military or not, take the time to get to know your people. If you are a manager, meet with the heads of each department for the first, in the first week. Get a chance to meet everyone in the HR department, everyone in the admin department. Get a chance really to sit down and get to know people and check in with them and see how they're doing. Because even though you're spending all that time in the beginning and you may have to spend a couple of weekends in the office, what you're doing is you're building a foundation to be successful, to be engaging, and to be impactful later on. And people will go the extra mile because you took that time at the very beginning to do so.
That is very well said. That is great advice. Amazing advice. Amazing advice. And we didn't even get to the advice question yet.
Yeah, so sorry. I didn't be the chase, but that's why it was so great.
It's brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm sure that will help so many people that are new to leadership or coming into leadership positions, as every single female veteran should be, because having a female veteran on your staff is like having a golden unicorn. So best thing you could possibly ever have. So I agree. That's wonderful, wonderful advice. And thank you for sharing it. So yeah. Is that what happened in Italy? You just ran things to the best of your ability and had a great time?
I did run things to the best of my ability. And I also got back into volunteering and speaking. I got to fulfill one of my childhood dreams of being a model in an Italian fashion show, which was
that's
great because
so cool.
I was double the age of all the teenagers there, but I happened to be perfect for Italian couture, which I would never know that I was. And I, got into cooking and really got involved in some earth conservation projects. I won the title of Miss Earth over there, which was great. And, one of the humbling things I got to see, even after the pandemic, it was get an award called the International Vertemera Award, which is award. Dr. Vertemera was a female physician known for her philanthropic activities. And so to be the first female officer to get such an award was such an honorable way to leave Italy, which made leaving Italy very, very hard. Like I extended there my year. It was 2-year tour. I extended to 3 years. I would have extended a 4th year if they would have let me, because I truly, truly loved it over there. And of course, there's certain things that happen that I just dealt with in Italy, cars not starting, people blocking you, but you adopted the attitude of the Benny. And I learned that it was good for my type A personality, just be slowed down a little bit, to relax a little bit, just to really enjoy things. And there's people over there who've become my family that I touch base with. It was very hard to watch what COVID did. And I know they're still dealing with it, but I really am grateful just for the experience I had. And I truly hope to get stationed back there. Just like Japan, there's, whenever you leave a place, you always remember all the good things. You don't always remember all the bad things, just because that's what memories are made of. So yeah, from there, the military moved me in a pandemic, which, oh my gosh, talk about probably the most stressful move of my life. So I went without my stuff for 6 months. Left in August, and I got my stuff delivered in Christmas here in Iwakuni, Japan. So yes, went all the way across the world. And as you can see, most of it did survive, because I do have my couch and my table, my bed behind me.
So, okay, we got to talk about that, but I'm going to back up, because I know that when we met, you were in Italy, and that was before the pandemic.
Hmm.
So, or actually, no, it was the pandemic was going on then.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
I remember asking you, because that was, I want to say July. So I remember asking you what was going on there and asking you how everyone was doing, because I'd remember seeing footage of people on the balcony singing in Italy. And I thought, oh my God, like how beautiful is that? Like, it was just the most gorgeous energy. So, and I remember we talked about it then, but I'd love to find out more. Like, I'd love for you to refresh my memory about what it was like for you when the pandemic happened and you were in Italy.
So when the pandemic happened, it was like a bomb went off. I literally had just got off the airplane from France and from a girls' weekend with my pageant director, and the prime minister issued a quarantine for the entire country. So all, I believe it's 33 million people were on lockdown. And it was like you felt like you were in a movie, but you didn't know where you were going to wake up. And being in southern Italy, being Sicily, where we weren't heavily hit, we weren't really noticing the changes that were happening up in north. We almost felt like we were unaffected. We were still in a bubble. And it wasn't until about a few days later when a bunch of people from northern Italy, about 30, I think it was about like 15 or 20,000, came on train down to southern Italy, to Sicily, to where they had their summer homes. And we got something like 120 cases overnight, like that we realized, oh no, this is real. This is actually a real thing. And um you would watch on the telly news military trucks taking rows and rows of bodies to the morgue to be buried. To There was no funerals, and it was just heart-wrenching because they are such a lovable population. And so what happens is, in Italy, all three generations usually live together. So you have the parents, the grandparents, and then you have the kids. And so the kids can no longer go to school because the kids may not have COVID systems, but they could give it to their parents or their grandparents. And Italy has the second population of elderly, like largest elderly population in the world after Japan. And so to hear and learn that entire towns in northern Italy are gone, like the entire town is dead, like gone, because most of the kids had moved away, is just
Oh my
like
God.
unimaginable. And so to me, it was really hard until things kind of hit back in the US that I would tell my friends this, and they wouldn't get it. And how could I understand they get it? Because even when I was hearing about it in China, it's just, it seems very intangible. It doesn't seem something real.
So far away.
So far away. Yeah. And so for me at first, I was like, okay, well, like I can still go to work, I can still do things. But, having my dental assistant break down and cry one day saying she was nervous about giving something from one of our patients who doesn't realize they're a carrier and bring it home to her family. That's when I was like, okay, I gotta like stop what I'm doing and stop thinking that I'm above this, that I'm invincible. Cause I'm not. I'm not. Like I don't have someone to go home to. She does. Like I really need to think about this. And we definitely changed the way we protect ourselves. We wear the N95 masks, which are very painful to wear. I'm not a fan of them. I am looking forward to the day when I don't have to wear them all the time to see patients. We definitely changed our protocol. We really scaled down on who we were seeing, who we were taking care of. I got pulled over many times by the Italian Cabernet, and to be able to speak enough Italian to get by was fine. But I was one of the Americans at the hospital that really took the time to learn it. A lot of my colleagues didn't. And I lived out in town. So, I mean, to hear helicopters patrol and police patrol and ambulances, that's all you heard. You don't hear church bells. You don't hear children playing, was just very eerie for a very long time. And so once I was able to visit people a little bit and things open up a little bit, it was great. I have to say, on a positive thing, I really appreciate how much cleaner the bathrooms were in Italy, because they were never that clean to begin with. I definitely appreciated how much less trash there was around. But it was just really hard to watch some of these businesses who relied on tourism and people eating there and being part of it go completely to the wayside. And so starting around Memorial Day, things started opening up a little bit. And in the summer, they were fine. But I left in September. And since then, what I learned of my colleagues is they've gone back and forth on these lockdowns. They've turned different colors of red, yellow, orange. And obviously the vaccines that they have there are different than the ones we have in the US. The US military definitely gets the vaccines for the base and the people who work on base, but I know it's a different company and different strand of than what they're giving out to the country. So I know the plan right now is that in Italy, if you are vaccinated this summer, Europe wants to allow people to come visit if you're fully vaccinated. But I would just be mindful that you want to make sure that's right for every country, because every country has different rules. And I did travel a little bit during the pandemic. Um, I traveled to Paris and I traveled to England, and those were the last two places I went to. And I will tell you, nothing was more eerie than being in the streets of Paris and not seeing a single person and thinking like, oh my gosh, where is everyone? I mean, literally, it feels like something out of a movie. It's just, it's not the same. It's definitely not the same. So I'm definitely looking forward to when more people are vaccinated and we can do things like go to restaurants and eat or travel and not worry about having to pack, a bunch of masks and just being able to, hug and kiss and do all those things that we as humans really need and value, and that touch. So yeah, it's definitely very eerie. And coming to Japan here, where they're very good about following the rules and very good about wearing the mask, it's a very different feeling. But I can tell even the Japanese, they're ready to have some of their freedoms back. It's very obvious here that as much as they've enjoyed following the rules and certain freedoms, they're ready to get out and explore a little bit. That's been very evident since I've come here as well.
I think that's the general feeling with everybody. I am blessed to have students who are from all around the world. So and my guest for my other show, Hot Topics Live, we live stream on Facebook 2 days a week. And so we have guests on Wednesdays from Europe, and our guests that live in the States are on Thursday nights. And so I get to talk to all these people from around the world, and I've been talking to them through the entire pandemic. So from the very beginning all the way through, we'd say, where are you? Like, what time is it? And how are things where you are? And I got to hear about what everyone was going through. And it gave me a really different perspective. I think right now, most people all around the world, I mean, I think we've been ready since before Christmas for this to be over, but it's just not over. So just because the holidays came, we couldn't really, as much as we wanted to, really just go all in. We can't just pretend it wasn't happening anymore. But now that I think everyone can feel that this is going to end soon, or at least change to a more free phase of it, I want to say, less constricted. I think there's like this energy amongst people when I talk to them now of just, I'm like chomping at the bit almost for it to be done and to see what's next, and feeling like it's going to be a positive thing. Yes. So I imagine that's the energy there in Japan where you are now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So it was definitely a transition coming here. The Japanese, I was stuck in a hotel room for 2 weeks. They will not let you leave for anything. So unlike the Italians, where I know my colleagues are able to go out and walk their dog by themselves, you're in that hotel room. And if you break the seal, you're going to be answering to a few colonels on base and maybe a general. So you don't want to do that. So yeah, we still have very strict guidelines, and they do change often. I think that's the hard part is what we see right now in our military, is that we just have different set of rules in different places, but you also have different countries, and you have the effect of the virus is very different in different places, and how many people are vaccinated. And so I know it's not an all one decision, but you've got a lot of chiefs and not enough Indians. And I think that's just my frustration, as well as a lot of other leaders who are not as high up in the food chain, is you want to take care of your sailors, and you want to take care of people's mental well-being and being able to see family or things they haven't been able to do. And so that is something that we've addressed in DOS surveys. So that's basically a chance for someone who's not familiar with that. It's basically a chance for you to voice your concerns anonymously to your chain of command, to your boss, of what you see that you don't like, and also what you see you do like. And also admiral calls, where for us in the dental corps, it's a chance for us to bring up issues in a very thoughtful, constructive way to ensure that for someone who's not in day-to-day operations, they can really have a good consensus of what things are truly like in the fleet. And that's something, I don't know, we'll see if I put my name in the hat for something that big down the future, but I actually hit 14 years in the Navy this month in May. So it's just amazing how fast time flies by.
I know it is. Congratulations, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Which brings me to my next question, because now we've heard all about your active duty experience, and you are still active duty, but you've got 14 years in, and that means you could retire right around the corner. right? You've got
Hmm.
several years, but still.
Yeah.
And my question for you is, what do you foresee yourself doing when you retire?
Well, I definitely see myself working in private practice. I don't desire to own my own practice, but I love being part of a team. That is one thing I enjoy in the military. I love bouncing ideas off of other specialists. So if there is an opportunity for me to work in someone's practice a few days a week, that is something I could definitely see myself doing. If there's a partnership, perhaps that's something I would do. But just being a solo practitioner has never been my dream to be a full-time entrepreneur. It's never been something I, aspire to. I really enjoy speaking. So I'm going to be speaking for the American Association of Orthodontists in January 22. Fingers crossed.
Exciting.
They'll still have it in Florida. So I'm actually their keynote speaker. So that'll be the first speech I've done in a long time, and to the largest audience and to my profession, which I am so honored to do because it's been on my bucket list of things to do. And then also I am in the works of publishing a book. So right now I am writing a memoir of my life, my story, but also the lessons I've learned along the way, because sometimes, we all think of things that happened to us that we all struggle and how we got out of it. And we just think, oh, well, that only applies to me. And you have no idea how maybe one part of that story may touch someone else or may inspire that person or push that person to do things. Because I will tell you, for me in this past week, I have been in conversations with public affairs officers and other people that are active duty who are doing what I'm doing in their fields. And it makes you feel so good that you're not alone. And also being active duty, it feels great to talk to other people who are active duty who've done the same thing, whether it's publishing books or speaking, that there is certain things you can do on active duty. You just have to be mindful of the rules, and you also have to be mindful of allowing your chain of command know. And sometimes being in the military right now, I feel like there's a transition of the way people believe you should versus kind of the new thoughts and how things are changing, how you can be very impactful. And so even in social media, there is, Admiral Charlie Brown, he is the Admiral for Public Affairs. He actually has an Instagram channel that I was part of for a week. And, what they do is they feature different people in the fleet of how they progress their career. And I mean, there was one guy who was a race car driver. He does that as a hobby, as a race car driver.
That's
and
incredible.
So it just shows how people can really have different walks of life. One, she was prior enlisted, became an officer. That transition, because I know there's people out there who want to do that path, or that was a springboard for them to get into another career they never thought they could ever do. But because they had their full-time job in the Navy, it allowed them to have this time and their liberty and their leave time outside of government time for them to pursue something that, because they still had that financial stability at home. So it's something I'm really excited about. I actually have a call with my writing coach when I get off the phone with you, just to finalize some things, and definitely will keep you posted once the book launches in February 2022.
You absolutely have to, because I know it's going to be an amazing read. So I'm going to read it. number one. And I'm going to recommend it to everyone because, I know that everyone who hears your story has got to be like, wow, she has led a double life. She's had this amazing military career. She's had a completely beautiful, amazing career outside of the military. And I mean, you're still active and you are writing a book. This book is happening next year. And who knows, that could lead to more books and obviously more keynote speaking and just, what I see. I'm just going to say it. I think I see you actually mentoring people when you're done. I think you'll be a keynote speaker, an author, and probably a coach, a mentor for people to reach their dreams. And while you're working in the pageant world, just maybe zipping up dresses and fixing shoes, right? Whatever. But I think that you are when people say that they are a multitasker, when they are amazing, have amazing multitasking skills on their resume, I think of you.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you.
I think that's the definition of being able to multitask and do all these things, but prioritize in a way where you're effective at each thing you do. And that's really hard. And sharing that information with people is actually a gift and a blessing. So I'm super excited for your book. I can't wait to read it myself. I know everyone will be looking forward to that as much as I am. So thank you for
Thank you.
sharing that. And I know I've taken up a lot of your time, so I just have three more questions for you
Sure.
before we wrap it up. And so, since you're still in the military, I am wondering what is your favorite thing? Like, what is the best thing from all of your time in military service for you?
Oh my gosh, it's the people that I meet, hands down. I have had some tough love from people who really looked out for me, but I've also had people, very often, sometimes people tell you what you want to hear than versus what you need to hear. And I am
Mhm.
so grateful to some of my mentors who've not only gone to bat for me, but also who have given me that clarity or really have made me feel valued and heard. So, two of my mentors are retiring in the next year, which I'm so, so sad, which means I need to find new ones, new captains, because they really have gone to bat for me. And so to me, there's other things in the military I love, the travel, the awesome gyms and having federal holidays off. But honestly, it's the people, and they're people that I will keep in touch with once we leave the military. I'm just glad the military was the avenue that connected us.
I love that. I agree with you. The people I met, I'm still friends with most of them, or at very minimum acquaintances. And if I went to where they were, I know that I could see them and hang out, and it would be like no time was lost. And it would just absolutely be amazing. And that is why I love doing the Female Veterans podcast, because when you get to the female veteran community, as you will in a few more years, you will find that it's the same as the military. When you meet a female veteran, it doesn't matter if she was officer, enlisted, what branch she was in, nothing. We are sisters, we are family, we are bonded, and we stick together. So
Absolutely.
I love
Absolutely.
that. I love that community. So this brings me to my next question for you, which is, what was the biggest obstacle you faced so far in the military?
Wow. That's a beautiful question because there's so many. I'm gonna have to probably just pick one thing because there is a lot of obstacles I have faced in the military. So um in residency, I really struggled. I struggled in the very, very beginning with studying. I wouldn't pick up things as quickly as my colleagues. And I remembered I had some very smart cookies in my class. My goodness, I wish that I could just look at the material once the night before and know it for the next day. And I was really grateful that I had Colonel Gary Gardner stand up for me. He was our training officer. He was our person kind of assigned to us because there was other faculty who wanted to push me out of the program. They felt like I wasn't the certain mold. I wasn't doing things the way that I wanted. And he's like, Corinne's the first one here in the morning, and she's the last one to leave at night. She's not afraid of hard work. Yes, there's other people here who are naturally talented and get it out of the way, but she will outwork them. She will put in the time and the energy, the effort to get it. And it also meant that I had to relearn how to study. I had to study differently. So I actually, for me, how I remember things is saying them out loud, putting them in different colors, flashcards, writing them over again and again in repetition. But I was so grateful that, and again, I was the only female in the program to have another officer look out for me and have my back and really squash those things, and then allow my actions to speak for themselves. Since then, to know that they had that faith in me, that they had that trust in me, really to kind of get past that. So for me, that was a big obstacle in my career, because if I didn't make it through that residency program, I wouldn't be an orthodontist that I am today.
That's amazing. I love that you shared that story. And even more than that, I love that you said, wow, there are so many obstacles that I faced. And I'll tell you why. Not that I'm happy that you had obstacles, but because you're so awesome that it's almost unrelatable. Okay.
Oh,
And it's
oh,
really incredible for all of the rest of us normal girls to hear that you too face challenges and struggles, and that if you can overcome them, so can we.
yes, absolutely. I mean, there's other obstacles. I tell people, people ask me, oh, is it hard being a female in the military? Yeah, there's times it's been hard, but I will tell you, there's a lot of times it's great to be a female in the military. Probably there's things I get because I'm a female in the military. But, being single, I would definitely say is a lot harder than having a family military. And I say that as a kid who used to be in the military, just because There are certain things that are asked of me that will never be asked of my friends who have families, hands down. So anyone out there who says, oh, it's hard to have a family military, I can give you example after example after example where things will be done for you that will never be done for me. And it is what it is. It's just, you have a family, it is what it is. But absolutely, there is obstacles that I am dealing with right now that I had no problem sharing with my chain of command. I am definitely a fire starter. And so I have a great relationship with my chain of command, but they know I am not afraid to push the envelope. Also, at the same time, they're letting me know when I'm pushing too hard. So
I love that you push.
Yes, absolutely. I just remind them I'm that girl at the Girl Scout at the door that just keeps knocking, and I'm just going to keep knocking until you answer. And I'm not going to go away. I'm not going to be like, oh, she's going to stop. Nope. I will just keep knocking.
Well, you know what they say, the squeaky wheel gets fixed, right?
Oh yes. Yeah. They don't care. And it's very early my time when I do that. So yes.
Right. And well, I love that. I love that you go for it. I mean, perseverance is a superpower. So you just sometimes have to keep after it. And we all know, every one of us that served in the military, that you just have to sometimes be a dog with a bone if you want to get anything accomplished. I mean,
absolutely.
We hear hurry up and wait in our sleep. Like it's just it's entrenched in there. Right. So that's amazing that you break down those barriers and you go for things and you make things happen. And that's powerful and empowering for everyone who's listening as well. To be reminded, no matter where you are, whether you're active duty or a veteran, like, just got to be a fire starter sometimes.
Well, and that means that you don't always have to follow the traditional path. I by no means did follow a traditional path. I just decided to leave a trail. And what? That's fine too, because then you're leaving a trail for someone else to follow behind you. So, keep that in mind. And there is hurdles and things I'm going through right now with publishing a book, being active duty. There's not a lot of guidance out there with doing a public speaking presentation where the American Association of Orthodontists is funding my travel. There's a lot of things and rules along the way. And it's just not being afraid to put yourself out there and put your neck out there and ask all these questions, because you'd be surprised. Not everyone knows all the right answers. And so really it's just there's a lot of feelers I have out there. Trust me, I'm learning a lot this past week on how I'm going to move forward with some of these projects that I'm going to be turning in September and October and moving forward. And sometimes it also means making sacrifices. Like, I'm going to be making some, because I'm not traveling, taking that money I would love to go spend on, exploring, the Far East, is going to be putting towards a coach. Just to help me be a better speaker. Because let's be honest, we all know when we look at professional athletes, they have a coach too. It's not because they're not in lack of good shape. They're having a coach because they need someone to push them. So I would strongly encourage you, to look at the areas of your life that you see that you can improve on and think of, okay, what is the thing that's stopping? What is my roadblock? Because there's someone out there that can help you. And it's just going to take some time and research, but anyone can do it really with anything in your life. Your mindset is the only thing that's stopping you. So that's been for me, for my journey.
Beautiful words. Your mindset is the only thing that is stopping you. This is what I tell my coaching clients all the time, and my students at London Rail Academy all the time. Your blocks come from what you're thinking. So we got to shift that perspective so you can go for your goals and reach them a lot faster. And I think it's incredible. You said a lot of things that I think are really important. And I teach in workshops when I meet with female veterans, is that you need to have a coach and at least 2 mentors. And those are the things, that's the recipe to get you where you're trying to go, right? If you want to achieve success in a new field. I have the same as I'm going into production, as I'm trying to do a documentary about female veterans, right? I have a coach. I have mentors to help me along the way. This means it's like learning OJT, just like I learned pharmacy OJT in the Navy. And I ended up not going to school because I was like, I know what I'm doing and I'm doing it. Right. Like, and I spent my last years of the military doing what I loved to do at the time, which was dispense meds. Right.
Right. Yeah.
So it's the same thing. If you want to achieve something, put those pieces in place and achieve it a lot faster. First, get your mind right, then go find you a mentor two, preferably two, and a coach. And then you'll smash through whatever you're trying to achieve. And we all know you're going to be successful, Corinne, because
Ah,
everything you touch ends up being a success.
thank
So
you. Thank you. Thank you. Well, I appreciate the vote of confidence. I've got a lot of nerves between now and next January, but I'm excited for the
amazing.
possibilities and just excited to see all my people, my fellow orthodontists. It's been so long. We haven't seen each other since May of 2019. It has been too long.
Yeah, it has been too long. And that being said, I know you've actually dropped along this conversation a lot of pieces of really beautiful, wonderful advice. But I'm going to ask you the final question of today. Well, the second to final question of today. And that is, what advice would you have for the female veterans listening, or for any girl who is considering military service?
You know, I will tell them that, to be in the military is a great stepping stone for success, but to remember that success doesn't happen on the day when the sun shines. Success is going to happen when it's dark, it's stormy, it's cloudy. You don't want to get out of bed. But you've got to embrace it, because what you're going through, whether you're in boot camp, whether you're doing a job where you have no clue what you're doing, you've got to embrace it, because that struggle, that pain that you're going to go through, that storm that you're going to weather is going to force you to get stronger. You're never going to understand of what you went through until you see the strength, the power, the perseverance, the resilience of going through that, what it built inside you. And you have to believe in life that as the tables return, that this is meant for you. Because I will tell you, in my journey, there is things that are powerful that will come my way. There are things that I will be confused about, where I'll feel very weak, where I feel like I have no control. But once I figure it out, once I have someone who gives me a helping hand, whether it's a coach or a mentor, you're going to wither that storm, and there's going to be a beautiful rainbow on the outside of that. And that's what I would tell you, joining with the military is like, it's going to be going into a tornado sometimes, where you're like, I can't see how I'm going to get through that. But guess what? It's going to be a new chapter, a new beginning. And it's time that you actually treated it that way.
Wow, that's beautiful, wise words. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Oh, my pleasure.
And I just got to tell you that it's been such a pleasure to hang out with you today and get to see you
You
again and catch
too.
up. It's been really fun. And we actually dove deeper into your story on the Female Veterans podcast than Woman Warrior Stories, because it's a different sort of show. And I'm
Yeah.
really glad that we got to do this and I got to hear more details about your experience.
Me too. Me too. Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to when the show airs. And if your audience has any questions, again, you have my contact information. Happy to provide any social media, and I'll definitely be excited to push it on my platforms, because like you that have help, I've got my great friend Veronica from pageantry. This is another great thing for pageantry. She helps me with all my social media, so we can make sure we push it on my end, because what you're doing is very important, and our real needs that gift that you have, Kia, that you're sharing. So thank you again for having me. It was truly an honor to be on your show.
Oh, girl, the pleasure was all mine. And speaking of social media, where can we find you if we're looking for you?
So you can find me on Facebook at Dr. Corinne Devin, and that's DrCorinne Devin. Same thing on Instagram at Dr. Corinne Devin, as well as on YouTube. And my email, drcorinne@gmail.com. So those are all great ways to reach me. If I don't respond right away, it's because I am in Japan. So it's probably 2:00 in the morning when you're messaging me. So I will respond usually the next day. But again, if you have questions about military life, being an orthodontist, going into pageantry, I'm definitely happy to give you some of my connections and people I've worked along the way that have really helped me get where I am at in present day.
Oh my gosh. Well, everybody knows by now that they will find all of your links in the show notes in the description box of this episode, so they can just find you as easily as possible if they would like to. Again, it has been such a pleasure to hang out with you today. Thank you so much for being a guest.
Thank you.
And with that, we're going to wrap it up. So, as always, I appreciate you guys so much for coming on this journey with me. It's constantly evolving, as you can see, and there's a lot of really good things coming up in the future. Um, but I will say this, I appreciate your support for everyone who has been donating, because it is just always a gift and a blessing. I never created this show for that. So thank you. Seriously, thank you. And for everyone who has been asking me how they can help with other female veterans, if you are in the state of Florida, or if you want to help donate to the organization that I'm on the board of, that's Hope for Vets, hopeforveterans.org. And you can go there and support female veterans that are in need. And they serve the state of Florida, which is where I used to live. And well, you can be of service to your sisters if you so choose to. And again, I love you guys, and I will talk to you next time.